Welcome everyone. My name is Rudolfo Félix.
Nice to meet you, Rudolfo.
Thank you. So I'm a researcher here in ITE, and I've been researching how we can use AI to represent non-human beings. I started with the master dissertation, and now I'm doing some papers to understanding how we can bring it to governance on organizations. So with this, I have a question that we're going to start here about this model evaluation. How does it mean to validate an AI in a more than human world? So, yes. So how engineers evaluate large language models? It's a very simple approach that then requires some mathematical models, but you basically you need to have a data that you know is true. You get it from experts, you get it from empirical values, you try to put on the large language models the questions that you think you're gonna have these answers, and you're gonna receive on the output basically the generated responses of the models to understand if it's true or not what what the large language model is making. So there are several approaches, as you see here, like MMLU is a multimodal large language approach of understanding. There are other multimodal language understanding. So it's a benchmark to see argumentation of the model and even other aspects. But most of the benchmarks that you can also see this, it's basically a question and answer approach, binary approach, and some more refined benchmarks go for a qualitative approach. There are other types of parameters included here as accuracy, F1 blue scores that go more to the large language model standardized parameters. And the goal on the benchmarks that you see, especially when they are comparing ChatGPT, Llama 3, and the new models, they are really focusing in this fast, scalable coding, mathematical approach, and sometimes they don't give this focus on ecology, non-human areas that we are making. So about the ecology and the cultural representation, it's very few nowadays, and basically, for what I understood, there is no standard evaluation. So we are basically here in a sea of trying to understand this, but like on my model and on my basically master dissertation, what I could do was basically gather some ground truth documents about Tagus estuary where I was representing with AI. And with this ground truth, create this truth data set. Then with these documents that I could validate because I had the documents, I use it with a large language model to generate a Q&A. A Q&A. On the beginning, I was like trying to put all the documents, and it was basically just creating questions on the beginning of the documents, because these documents, they pass to the RAG system, that is Retrieval-Augmented Generation system. It passed as a vector. And it basically was searching on the first half of the vector. So to have a more dynamic and with a more dimension Q&A through all the documents, I basically did some loops where I said, like, let's do like 5 questions in this first half, in this first group. Then we're gonna do more 5 questions on the second group. So I distributed the Q&A between the documents. And this is more or less the approach that normally the benchmarks use. They use also this generation with ground truth, or sometimes they just gather a group of experts to make these questions. And then they do this binary benchmark on this data set. So basically, the one model that is evaluating that is the APF, where the expert puts the inputs, and then you start to weight this tuning model that instead of just having one or two, you start to having like a value that goes from 0 to 1 and has a lot of decimals. And you have a more refined and robust way of evaluating this in a bigger data set of thousands and millions of lives. I wanted to bring a little bridge to the designers and people that are working with non-human frameworks. And for what I understood, the people that are referenced here is Rosen and Gillette, and you're gonna see the reference in the end. But basically, the designers, when they are thinking to use non-human representation, they have this approach of understanding the relevance, the tone, the values, the stories, the multi-species presence on the design of the tools or even the technologies for non-human beings. And this goes even beyond of zeros and ones evaluation. So to really have this benchmark, you need to go in a more complex evaluation. And this is very related with ecology dynamics, with ecology studies, between the ecosystems, between the species, and on individual species. So some of the questions that Rosen help us to surface this understanding is who is included, what is the system, where are the interventions, and how is the design relational? And yeah, basically, just to finalize this quick presentation, the design of non-human and human AI evaluation also brings the human interests. So when I was also looking for this Tagus estuary documentation, I was also focusing what was the influence of the human and what were also the needs of the human. So one question that came on my mind was, what if we could design benchmarks with non-human stakeholders with the AI? And having this really standard non-human human AI benchmarks for the large language model. Yes, co-design.
How design?
Yeah, that's the question.
Let's wait for Rudolfo and then we can engage the conversation.
But yeah, it's a very hard question. But yeah, like in my Tagus project, I found that narrative, metaphor, and even silence matter on this approach. And like the design offers some tools to be benchmarked to reflect also ecosystem and future and not just metrics. And yeah, if you want to scan this code, you will find some reference that will be more technical on the AI and also on the design. And now we're gonna have some times for the some questions and understanding how we can answer this question.
Well,
Stop sharing.
since this is your work, aren't you supposed to answer?
Can you stop sharing?
Stop sharing
Stop sharing.
the screen.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I would like to point people online on the screen, the server screen, so we can all see
Who's
them.
online?
Yeah, exactly. We should have this here. So now
I did it.
I think it's because it's like on full screen.
Yes.
Just a second. You're gonna be there here in the screen. Okay, here you go. Okay, so normally at this point, the idea is that we can have a conversation and we can all bring our ideas, experiences, questions, or like our own challenges to this kind of problems of validation with non-humans or humans or like multi-agent systems. I guess like there's like a bunch of questions to have. I think Noah already has questions about the design.
Yeah, how to co-design with non-humans.
So for what I learned, like
Use extra.
you use extra tools. It's not
Yes.
like maybe I would like to bring Carlos on this answer because he has been working a little bit more with that, and maybe you could even explain like your project with a mask.
Yeah, but in my project, the AI expert is one of my workmates in the collective. So I can explain you. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I can explain you how it's working or how it was working. Um maybe should I share my screen with pictures or
If you want, go ahead.
mm,
To accept probably when
I
he
wasn't
has.
expecting this.
No, it's okay. I mean, if you want to share, it's
Yeah,
also
I think it's better if there is a picture.
Yes.
multiple
Yes.
participants. Thank you about this.
I just would like to bring also that like all the study of ecology for me is a way of co-designing.
Mm.
Because you need this conscious observation and putting yourself on the perspective of the non-human to understand what are his needs.
Okay. You're saying, Carlos, just for so you know, this is being recorded, might be published on.
Yeah, don't worry. So, in this project, I'm working with the symbiosis between humans, AI, and um, Aleobacter and Aleoarchaea. It's the name of one of the microorganisms living in salt fields like this is where I'm for now working on. It's a salt field in the Mediterranean coast of Spain, near Alicante. So, this is an arts installation based on a more than human interaction where the human is enjoying an skincare based on a steam mask where the geometry of the mask is also allowing, as you can see in this picture, is picking up the human sweat and sending the sweat to this pool where a colony of Aleoarchaeas is living, and we have this lamp where the three basic conditions for the survival of the archaeas is guaranteed: the temperature, the ultraviolet radiation, and the pressure of the water, the oxygenation of the water. And at the same time, the lamp has sensors who are sending datasets to an LLM, and this LLM is producing a guided meditation that is conducting the skincare for the humans through a voice with a duration of 7 minutes because it's enough time to pick up enough human sweat and we are using the human front because it's the part of the body where we produce more sweat in less time. And so is this basically the my use with non-humans and LA.
Thank you, Carlos.
That was great. Yeah, that was
Yes.
great to see
Thank you
your
for sharing.
project.
And congratulations for your project.
I have a question. I didn't catch what the math catches.
There was like something with LLMs that I missed a bit. So how is the LLM working there? Is there a language model?
So the LLM is hosted on Grok servers and structured with Crew AI framework, and the system coordinates multiple agents. Like we have a scientific, a speculative designer, and affective agent. The last one is a translator because we are working in the with the LLM in English, but the guided meditation is in Catalan and Spanish. So the design is processing the environmental data from the bacterial pond and is transformed this data through these six agents into this spoken meditation.
Oh,
There's a functionality with the math.
The mask is getting the sweat from the face, and this sweat is important for the creation of the non-humans, the microorganisms that you.
I forgot that. The swear is equilibrating, balancing the sweat is balancing the pH of the water. Because if not, the pH is going to be it's the lower because the crystallization process. So the human swear is giving more pH because the pollution of the of the
for the air.
of the organism we have in our face,
Okay.
the makeup, the creams, and all this.
That's so cool. I will so before we go like to like talk more about this, I would like to know how was your experience like evaluating this system? And I think you didn't make like a proper evaluation or scientific evaluation of the language systems or like the agents that are kind of like doing this translation. But as an artist and like different from an engineer, because I guess like also the way that the kind of benchmarks that Rudolfo was posing to us are very like human centric and like more to evaluate like language models as a whole, right? And maybe less to evaluate like very specific cases, but we know that LLMs are most of the times being used in like very, very specific cases. So like in your experience as an artist that wanted to know that your system was working correctly, like how was for you this process? Did you have to like go and do a lot of prompt engineering and test things here and there and checking with people, or did you like let the LLMs kind of like take over?
Yeah, the first step of my research was for this first exhibition in Alicante, in a contemporary cultural center from the university, was evaluating the user experience through a survey, through a semi-structured interview, and with another activity during the semi-structured interview where the users were making collages using pictures, materials, textures. Um, we made this before and after the experience in order the survey, the semi-structured interview, and the collage in order to check how they change the vision of the soul fields and the vision about symbiosis and interspecies collaborations and cooperation. So I was doing this the last months since February to May. And the results, the results I'm now analyzing are because in the college they had to do a collage about their vision of the soul fields in 100 years in 2125. So they changed the vision because before the experience they had a very dystopian apocalyptical vision And after experimenting the skincare, they had a utopian interspecies cooperation vision. So that was my first evaluation, this user experience. I also in the survey I used um, different tests to check how they were dealing with the system and how they were experiencing emotions in the system. And now I'm going to do an ethnography to check the design process with my workmates because I was like the coordinator of the whole installation, but we have an electronics expert, an AI expert, an creative director, an artistic director to design the pool and the final environment of the exhibition room. So now I'm doing this. And in this case, this is not important at this point, but the sensors and the data sets were failing during these months. So my idea, I'm candidating the project for different European grants and all this to reproduce this in the Samoku salt fields here in Lisbon and in a cultural center in Lisbon near here to be more close of the daily work of the sensors and the data sets results for next year or 2027. Um, but in any case, we were picking up water each month because we are going to analyze the state of the water monthly with a microbiology lab because all this project it's made because we are collaborating with Alicante's microbiology laboratory since like 2 years ago, and we have learned a lot about this kind of microorganisms thanks of they are working with them since the 80s or like the 75 or something like this. So this is, yeah.
One more minute, go ahead.
Sorry.
You can finish, please. But you
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
yeah.
It's all.
Okay, thank you so much. That was very interesting. I think that says a lot about how to evaluate like HCI, right? So this is very interesting because there's like a human component and you're also like evaluating the bacteria. So it's a more than human approach and it's like a design with like bacteria and everything. It's a very interesting media and like it's something that we also been discussing in like the more than human research, which has been pretty interesting about how to evaluate like art, right? Which is kind of like something that is not necessarily evaluated or not like in a traditional sense scientific term. So I wanted to ask Luis about before I'm going to ask if like if anybody wants to comment anything, but I wanted to ask Luis if you can tell how our experience like doing the video game has been like on evaluating how the LLMs are behaving and like how like metrics, like traditional metrics cannot be used. And we also been like publishing a few articles about this. So I think I can also share some of this. But yeah, somebody has anything to say before we jump about like what Carlos was sharing, maybe Elisangela or something, because we jumped to Luis.
I think I do have.
Okay, go ahead.
Don't you think that it's more user-centered than co-design?
Just maybe, did you hear that, Carlos?
I think this
No,
is
it's because then give us a second. We change the microphone to, maybe you have to speak a little louder so Carlos can hear you.
okay. My question is, don't you think that this is more user-centered than co-design?
Sorry, then what?
It's more user-centered than co-design.
Dan, I forgot the last word.
If it's more user-centered than co-design.
It's not code. I mean, it's co-design, the part where the data sets of the archaeas are producing the guided meditation, but there is no agency for them. So I don't think it's co-design, because when you are doing co-design, there is an agency with all the agents that are co-designing. But in this case, we are not asking the archaea what they think about this. And
What's realism?
And I think I think it's more user-centered, because the purpose of this installation and my research is to materialize experience where there is a cognitive framework where different cognitive capacities from different human and non-human agents are speaking each other. But the purpose is to decenter the human epistemology for a non-anthropogenic epistemology, but we are always speaking for the human.
It's very comfortable. Rudolfo, do you want to say something?
Yes, that's some like for me, on my personal view, I think co-design would be the best approach to create these benchmarks, because you could really have like architects, designers, artists, people that are experts on biology, to really understanding how to create these human-computer interaction benchmarks. But it's been very hard, like, to create really a concrete group thinking about like a benchmark for that. And I also found myself being more like user-centered than using like surveys. That's how was the interaction of my model to represent other humans on the opinion of people of using that. So I didn't really do co-design. So this was an open question, like how we could do co-design, you know? Just to be thinking about this for our session.
Yeah. I would like to know if Elisangela, do you have anything to say about like what's been shared?
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, do you want to say anything or ask questions or like have any comment or show something?
No, I don't have question. Thanks.
Okay, no worries. So I think Luis and I can share a bit of how it has been evaluating for us. So like many of you know, we are developing this game on energy, so it's not at all like more than human, but we're like the game you have to interact with agents. So like there's like these characters which are actually not human, but they're humanoids. But they're played by agents, so you have to chat with the character and like get to solve the challenges. And there's like this dual thing where the character has the characteristics of the character, but it also has to do evaluation. So it's like a dual task that is done by a single agent. So different to maybe the system of Carlos that has like 6 agents. We have one single agent that does 2 tasks at the same time. So one thing kind of influences the other. So yeah, yeah, I don't know, Luis, if you want to share any experience you had with the prompt engineering there.
Well, I have much experience in benchmark and evaluate how well the LLM is doing and stuff like that. Because I always use the inbuilt tools to benchmark, like Rudolfo mentioned, like F1 score, accuracy, and stuff like that. I came here actually because I'm more interested in the engineering side, which is specifically to know how consumption and like energy-related benchmarks I can use to evaluate my LLM. But yeah, like Andrés said, our game at the moment is evaluating the personal traits and what else again? And
well, it has like behavior and it has
the
information
tone
about.
of voice is already used,
Yeah,
and a few other characteristics. But I'm going to ask Rudolfo if he knows a benchmark or a framework that can measure power consumption without accessing directly the graphic card or stuff like that. If there is an open framework or stuff, I can evaluate.
I don't know a specific one, but when I was doing that evaluation on my work, I was measuring all the tokens that were being generated on the beginning, between, and in the end.
Okay.
So the input of the question, how much tokens were made, and then inside the LLM that where he was basically getting more context from the database,
Yeah.
and doing this in context loop to understanding what is the final answer, and then counting the last generating phrase of the.
Okay.
And with this, I was also counting the time and having the tokens, the time, I could measure how much cost I was having for the GPU.
Yeah.
That would be just like a count or the API cost that I was having for the models.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find a framework, otherwise I need to access directly the server parameters to see how much power is consumed by every thread you're using for the
Like there's a platform that is called LangFuse.
Okay.
And where does this observability, and then you can see by each prompt that you are generating.
Yeah.
Then this is an open source.
Okay, I see.
Maybe I can show you.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is like with our models, like we run them locally. So we normally use like small models. Then because Rudolfo is using like API of ChatGPT, he has like the access to the count of tokens directly.
Yeah, but
there is a ways for us to access a count of tokens.
I also work with local models. Can you see my window? Do you see?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you see GitHub?
Yeah, so basically this is open source observability metrics eval prompt management. Like there are other ones.
No, we're not seeing this. I think it's like you're showing like a different desktop.
Just a desktop.
Wait, just a second again. So this is one, like you need to use Python.
Two. Desktop 2.
No, Safari.
Okay.
Or Safari, yes.
So you need to use, in this case, Python running with your code on the prompts and basically activating this there, and then it opens like basically a web UI where you can then basically having more or less these characters.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
They're going to
Wait. Core features. But yeah, you can use it.
It's a platform like a web-based, it is a API to communicate, or you can do locally as well?
Yeah, locally, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not a llama. I said there was like some other, but we can check.
I just wanted, like now you can you have inside ChatGPT this kind of this kind of metrics. Before you didn't have it. But this is kind of like a competitor to a very similar platform of LangChain.
Okay.
Sometimes doesn't work well, but you need to focus and you can do it. Yes. But just show you how you can see like the latency. It is already the calculations. Like I think if you have the time, then maybe you can see like on your GPU almost how much is expended.
Can you show something after you finish this?
Yes, but it's more or less this, just to be very quick on this. You can see the prompts. This is also good to see the things between when you are doing rack systems and getting the context. Sometimes doesn't work very well because like when I was using Llama Index, there you go.
there is these workshops happening at CAI every year. So it's called the Human-Centered Evaluation and Auditing of Language Models. So of course this is human-centered, yeah, sadly enough. Not more than human. So we are in a human-computer interaction, and most of the research done here is human-centered. But this doesn't mean that HCI has to be exclusively human-centered. So this year they have the second human-centered evaluation and auditing language models, and they are doing this, apparently continue doing this each year at CAI, and it's done by these people and whatever, and these are some of the papers that were accepted. So if you okay, so if you come here, you can see like a lot of the way people are evaluating models for very specific tasks. And I think one of the things that is very complicated or like very hard to achieve when evaluating is that we do implementations for very specific, we use agents for very specific tasks, which like normally like benchmarks are not very specific. And like finding ground truths is quite complicated. So at least I can show you, I cannot talk for the other ones. I think I did review one of these two papers here. But we did this generalistic paper. It's not like on the main track, but we wrote this paper for the workshop. And like one of the things that we did, it was basically using kind of like trying to measuring like accuracy. So that we did is like for the kind of research that we're doing, which is like we need an agent to evaluate if it's like positive or negative the question that the user gives. We basically created 6 answers like here. So for each level, so it's 3 levels that we are evaluating the agent's performance. And we create like a small ground truth. So it's not like normally benchmarks will work like with big ground truths. So in here we just we work with an expert and we create a small ground truths just to make an idea of like if the model is kind of like working or not working, what's the behavior. But of course this is not like a complete evaluation, and I'm sure like as a benchmark this will only work for evaluating our specific case. But yeah, so what we did later is I compared different models to see which model adapted the better for the task that we were using it. Specific, and we compare like the 3 different levels. So like the first 3 questions are for the first level, the second 3 questions are for the second level, and the third 3 questions are for the third level. And like this gets you an idea of like, okay, Mistral, it's like we run each question, it answered 20 times, like on the model for each level, for like each of the 6 answers, whatever, for each different model. So if it says 20, it's because the answer 20 times, the answers were accepted. And if you see, for example, Mistral, most of the time the answers are just taken, even if you have wrong answers. So this kind of tells you that Mistral has kind of like a very like positive, like optimistic kind of like behavior. And then if you see like models like Llama or DeepSeek, you see it's very mixed, right? So you have answers that have like 10 or 14 times it's true and 4 times it's no, you know, so like. Yeah. This kind of tells us that DeepSeek and Llama are not very like deterministic. These are like small models, like the Llama 3 is like the 3 billion parameters, which is way smaller than the other models we're evaluating. Like DeepSeek is like 14 billion parameters. But even though DeepSeek also has this kind of like 12, 13 kind of behavior, and then if you see Phi4, it has like very accurate behavior, but sometimes it is very unforgiving. And it also evaluates only as false. Actually, in this last level, it happens a lot. And Quen, it also has a bit more negative. So it's hard to understand what's happening, but at least like creating these ground truths kind of like let us methodologically analyze which is like the best model for your use case and stuff like this. So I just wanted to share this idea that we can create. And they also use like more, like Paulo and Lucas, they also use like more machine learning metrics to analyze this data later. But this is something I would like to talk about. But yeah, sure. This is like true negatives, true positives, and like false negatives and things like this. And like there's also this other table, which I think is cool. I don't know.
It's
Yeah,
a confusion.
yeah, it's got a lot of
Could you
confusion.
tell us what are those numbers or is
Yeah,
it
these are
secret?
20 zeros. There's an 18 there as well
Yeah,
too.
what does it
Yeah. It shows me about the
It's
numbers.
just like true negatives, true
Yeah,
false.
yeah,
It's
It shows you like from the percentage of each answer, like it will always sum 20, right? So in Mistral you see like it's always 20, false positives, it's all false positives. So false positive is when the answer is positive, but it's not correct. So it's a false positive, right? False negative is when the answer is negative, but it's false.
I know what
And true positives, true negatives. Okay, there you go. We know enough about logics. So yeah, I think that this is enough. I don't know if like we want to have like some conclusions or like an end on the discussion, just to finish with this like last 10 minutes and yeah.
Well, I think to answer Rudolfo's initial question,
Yes.
it doesn't always have to be human-centered, let's put it that way. So I think maybe what could help you is using user-centered approaches.
Okay.
Like literally you can use, because I remember like for instance when we studied like user-centered, we sometimes even like look from machine's perspective, you can look from anything's perspective. So I'm pretty sure that you can use those methods that you're not reinventing the wheel, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So you can definitely use those approaches and they're going to help you with what you're trying to do. But once again, it's user-centered, it's not coded.
Okay.
Yeah, how could we like co-design? And I think like language models are a good way to like help co-design, but it's always very like you cannot never know if the language model. You should leave on the screen the people because this is being recorded. This screen, the entire screen is being recorded. So maybe just leave the window of Google Meets
Okay.
because the entire screen is being recorded. No, let's stop the recording. Just leave the Google Meets there.
He fixed the problem.
Yeah. Or if you want to put like the.
No, I just
question.
wanted to put this image.
Oh, you wanted to put the question? Sorry. Okay, well, same thing. Anyway, yeah, I mean, like, you can never really know if language models are actually understanding the thing. Like, you can use it as a translator, but it's always like it always feels like it's a very like artistic work that you're doing, which is like you're kind of like just let the computer kind of imagine what it would be like to either like be water or like be like bacterium or be like in your case I don't know what you're asking. Yeah, it's water as well.
Yeah,
It's
it
the
was
river.
Tagus estuary.
Is the ecosystem.
Yeah,
Right.
and what is the the Tagus estuary? You can look at just like as the estuary. You can look at as the air above the estuary, the ground around, all the land. You can like. You also need to define the dimension of your non-human. You know. Yeah, of your user. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Your user. But like, do you think would be a good idea to have like standards to non-human AI evaluation?
I think you're definitely going to find a lot of methodologies that you can implement and they're going to help you.
Okay.
Yeah, like I guess like it will be an hypothetical question, like if the ecosystem could like evaluate this LLM and could evaluate this language model, what would it say, right? Because I think like we are like representing the system, for sure, and it works, right? Like we can definitely use an LLM to represent them. But if it had agency, the ecosystem had agency, and I'm sure, I think it has, but if like it has agency, like what would it think about language models? Like it would think like, oh, I'm correctly represented, my interests are being taken into account, my problems are being taken into account. Because I guess, and I guess at some point the LLM is going to fail the ecosystem in representing it. Because it's quite a task for
Yeah,
anybody to
because like
represent the system.
that's something that I also understood because like the Tagus estuary as a dimension of the estuary is filling the estuary. He has the species inside, you know, it's like all these sensors, all this sensibility how can you bring it like to a digital format, you know?
Develop persona.
Yeah, you can get the developer persona, but will be always limited on
Yeah.
the cessation of the old tags estuary.
Yeah, but that's kind of a challenge. That's why I'm telling you, like maybe try. I don't know how you can implement it with LLM, but maybe you're going to be using more than just text
Yes.
in that case.
Yeah.
So that might actually help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I also understood. Like my voice-to-voice agent is very limited because the documents are just based on text. And when I was doing like the literature review, I understood that like if I needed to do as much complete I could with the technology around, I needed like GPS like geolocation, like the satellites, understanding all this map, like all the layers that you can have on the satellites of the estuary, people also that are interacting in the estuary, like local people, and even having like water sensors, understanding the flux, the oxygen, and yeah, it would be like so many variables, so many sensors all around. But yeah.
Yeah, I would like to say, if nobody has any comment, but it's like, I kind of feel like we failed in one thing when you say, like, I think agents are great, like language agents are great at doing like a bunch of simulation. And I really like how agents can like simulate either people or ecosystems, and like we can use them to simulate things, or even they can simulate users. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of HCI that is going to be done just like using LLMs as users directly, you know, like, and it's great. I mean, it's cool because we can like have an idea we don't have, and it's quite easy to implement. But like one of the things I have like a problem when we think about animals, and it's like I think like human language has like very particular way of functioning, right? It has like specific words that mean like very complex context, and we have like writing and like written grammar and like more intuitive grammar as well and stuff. And I wonder like if like animals or like even humans before language, like if the way we think is not necessarily language, right, itself. Like we think like through sensory and like through images, and of course there's concepts and like in animals' brains. But I wonder if like the fact that we as humans are like so determined by language, and like we acquire language like like in such a way like soon in our childhood, like the way that we think is like too conditioned by language, right? Like the way we like once you acquire language and like the kind of language that humans have, because of course other species will have languages, but the kind of language that we have, like I'm sure you replace a lot of your thinking and like your brain functions just by making them language. Right, so I wonder if like LLMs kind of like really fail to understand what is the living experience and like the thinking experience of a like non-language or like non-human language kind of thing.
I actually have to take your question one step back.
Okay.
Which is basically when we think about LLMs, think about what language you're speaking. Because I can tell you from my experience, whenever you even switch languages, if you're not speaking in English, it starts to go crazy sometimes.
Okay.
And even when like I was talking to my friends, and my friends are actually from different Arab countries, and we're always like discussing, for instance, this issue of when you speak one language, it replies in another one, and it mixes all of that. So even with language, it's not even proper.
Yeah.
So going beyond that, like I think before you need to think about language and how it's processed in the first place, and then how it like other things can be processed. So I think it's way
like what you are saying. I also noticed when I was doing like this benchmark, because I had the documents in Portuguese, and then I needed to also use it in English, and some like names of the species on Portuguese, they were not in English, so I needed to then understand the scientific language, but then what was the English word for that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it misunderstands, especially that in some languages you have one word that means one thing and in another
Yeah,
language it
yeah.
means another, and at some point you need to actually translate, like you need to translate it, otherwise it will not understand.
Yeah, and if we are also like trying to represent, imagine like the Amazon, like there is this knowledge that is not textual. Like how you can bring it to a AI.
Okay, so I guess like I would like to say like for me like LLMs are pretty much calculators. I do think they have like some thinking going on, but most of its thinking is just like knowledge that is coming off language, right? So like it is really dependent on language, and like language itself thinks. That's my take on it. Like language itself has knowledge. Just like the existence of words are like very specific, like conceptual frameworks, right? So language is like a thinking model itself, and like we basically put language into a calculator, and the calculator probably thinks using words, and like we know that it can like do this kind of like deep thinking, like complex, like steps by step. But I just think is for me it's like really much. I don't think that an LLM thinks as like we animals think.
Is other conscious. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think
Other
it can
type of
have
thinking.
consciousness, maybe debatable for sure, but it's
So
like,
he's laughing a lot.
what?
No, I think it's just that if you do have a computer science background, I don't think that this would be your opinion.
Well,
Let's put it that way.
like which because I've been like hearing computer scientists
Everything you just
fighting
said,
about
I mean,
this.
Yeah.
And I think like the first session I actually brought like Alter 3, which is like from Ikegami Lab, and like I'm sure Professor Ikegami like he swears that LLMs have like emotions. Like he will give his life like to
Yeah, but
prove
like,
that LLMs have
yeah, but like
emotions.
normally emotions they are related with chemical reactions that are hormones, and you are having electrical interaction that is a little bit
I
different.
think it's basically clustering. It learns.
Yeah.
So basically, if it sees you acting in a way, it's going to learn. It's going to acquire that. It's going to put it in a cluster. So yeah, thinking is actually going back to the cluster and seeing the data how it is and
Yeah.
goes. That's why I'm telling you, like, if like from an engineering perspective, if you understand how it works, then I understand where you're coming from. It's just that I disagree with some of the wording, I think maybe of
Yeah.
how you're putting it, because what is thinking at this point? And it's very philosophical at this point.
Yes.
And try to, because when we actually think about us thinking, I think we actually do the same. We go back to our own information and we analyze it. So
Yeah, but I guess like in the area of language, and like when we bring language, as we are bringing language right now into computation, it suddenly seems like computation is no longer out of the humanities.
Yeah.
It suddenly starts feeling like once you like start to interact with agents that have language, then you have to start like talking from philosophical perspectives.
Yes.
And from the art perspectives, and from
Yeah.
the sociological, psychological, linguistical, literary, you know, like poetics kind of like
Yeah.
perspectives, right? So
That's like I saw a conversation between two professors of MIT that they were basically saying like AI ate all the documents, all the knowledge that were text, image, but what is AI? It's philosophy.
that's one way to look at it.
And we finish with
Aquele
this.
Carlos
Sorry
Dawson.
guys, I have to interrupt you. It was a pleasure and hope to see you both in
Thank
this
you.
format.
Yeah, we are
Thank you for
finishing. Thank you so much, Carlos.
Yeah, we're just closing. Let's
Ciao.
just continue
Bye.
just for a minute. We close. We can
Okay.
close the session and go ahead, Carlos. You can go. Yeah, let's close the session. That was a beautiful conclusion, and I don't think this is a conclusion for this semester. ITI-LETS. Like, what is AI? AI is philosophy. And I think this is great. Like, this is a great. Probably we're very, very far away from having an AI that can like literally be like the next Hegel or whatever. But maybe the next great philosopher is going to be an AI, right? Maybe.
When the superintelligence comes.
I feel like a Black Mirror
Yeah.
episode is growing here.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So yeah. Bye bye.
Ciao, 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 ciao.